Hi everyone, and welcome to another online lesson from the Centro de Idiomas y Cultura. Today we are going to be looking at two sets of words and phrases that we use to link ideas together both in spoken and written English. You might hear these called connectors, linkers, or discourse markers. But the main idea here is that we are using these words to show a specific idea. The two sets we are going to see today show first, contrast, and second, purpose. Let's begin with our language for contrast. All of the structures that we use today to show contrast are going to need three basic elements. 1, a positive idea. 2, a negative idea. And 3, a word or phrase to show contrast. In total, we're going to see 7 words and phrases to show contrast in 3 different categories. Each category is accompanied by a specific organization of the 3 elements, and it also affects the structure of our positive and negative ideas. So let's take a look at all 7 of these words and phrases in action. Let's begin with our first 2 words, but and however. We use these 2 words very similarly. However, there is one difference that we will talk about later. The structure we use with these 2 words is negative idea plus but or however plus a positive idea. Or we can switch these around and do a positive idea plus but or however plus a negative idea. For example, I don't have much money, but I'm going to buy a car. Or I'm hungry, but I'm not going to eat anything. In both of these cases, we could use however instead of but if we wanted to sound a bit more formal. Also note how the punctuation we need changes with however. If we use but, we need a comma after our first idea. But if we use however, we should use a semicolon before however and a comma afterwards. Our next 3 connectors for contrast are though, although, and even though. And really, these 3 mean pretty much the same thing. However, technically, although is stronger than though, and even though is stronger than although, but they all show contrast. Let's have a look at how we use them and then some examples. So, we can use these words in 2 different ways. The first one is at the start of a sentence, and we do this like this. Though, although, or even though, plus a negative idea, plus a comma, plus a positive idea. For example, although I don't have much money, I'm going to buy a car. And like before, we can swap these around and we can say, for example, although I'm hungry, I'm not going to eat anything. Now, the second way, we can also use these in the middle of a sentence. For example, I'm not going to eat anything even though I'm hungry. And I'm going to buy a car even though I don't have much money. Notice that in this second configuration, we don't use a comma. Now, for our final 2 connectors, we're going to have to change one element of our structure. So far, with but, however, though, although, and even though, we've been using complete independent clauses to show our positive and our negative ideas. For our final 2 connectors, despite and in spite of, we're going to use one complete idea, but the idea that is connected to despite or in spite of has to take a different form. We have to use despite or in spite of plus a thing, a noun. So for this, we're going to do it with a gerund phrase. Hopefully we remember that a gerund is a noun that we form by adding ing to the base verb. For example, eating. Therefore, our first structure looks like this. Despite or in spite of plus a negative gerund phrase plus a comma plus a complete positive idea. For example, despite not having much money, I'm going to buy a car. And of course, we can swap around our positive and negative. For example, despite being hungry, I'm not going to eat anything. Now, the second structure that we can use with these two connectors puts the connector in the middle and looks like negative idea plus despite or in spite of plus a positive idea. For example, I'm not going to eat anything in spite of being hungry. Or we can swap these around and say, I'm going to buy a car in spite of not having much money. Note here that in the second structure, we are not using a comma in the middle, just like with though, although, and even though. Now, I'm going to put all of the examples and all of the structures that we've seen so far on the screen for you to review and to make any notes that you feel necessary. On the next page, you're going to have some exercises, and all of your answers will be based on understanding the structure of the sentence. Because as we know, all of the words we've seen show contrast of positive and negative, or negative and positive. So make all of the notes you need, use them to complete the exercises. Good luck, and I will see you afterwards to talk about connectors for purpose. See you soon.